Let's catch up now with Senator Andrew Bragg, who's a Liberal senator for New South Wales and the third federal politician to test positive for coronavirus. He joins us now via Skype from isolation. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. First question, obviously, is how are you feeling?
G'day, Chris. Look, it's not too bad. I have to say that for a younger person, I think often the symptoms aren't too terrible. It feels like a flu. I've had, for example, headaches, and I've had, some aches and pains and a bit of fatigue, and that's sort of been the extent of it so far.
Now, is the medical advice to you that you'll get worse? Is it something you just treat with Panadol? Work us through the actual, the medical experience you're going through here.
Well, I mean, the doctors are doing their best to, I think, provide the best advice they can. In effect, if you have a headache or you have a sore throat, the advice at the moment is that you should take some Panadol. That's been effective for me, and so that's really what I've been doing, trying to get some rest. But as you know, in these roles, I mean, the phones always ring and people want to talk about things. So I'm still trying to do some work, so that's okay.
So you've been to hospital. Are you in isolation at home now? And how does that work? How do you make sure that there's no contact with other people and cross-infection?
So I'm locked in with my family, and I won't be leaving the house. And effectively, I've got to rely on friends and neighbours to go and get supplies and leave it at the front door. And we've taken the decision just to isolate from the community until such time as I return negative tests. Sorry, just from negative tests. That's right.
Right. And how much of a strain is it on your family and others?
Look, I mean, in the role I've got, the most important thing is to keep a cool head and to try and make sure that you use every opportunity to remind people about what to do, how to keep hygienic and how to keep clean, to try and stop the spread of the virus. And that's really been my focus. I mean, unfortunately, I've come across people over the infectious period, and I guess my duty of care to my staff and others have come into contact with me has been to try and aware of the latest medical facts. And as you know, if people come into contact with someone who's got the virus, they should isolate for the 14 days.
Yeah, I really appreciate you talking to us. It's great that we can see you and talk to you, because while we're all got to work hard to suppress the spread of this infection, we need to see that for a lot of people it can be an inconvenience, but a medical inconvenience that you can get through pretty well. We've seen that with Peter Dutton and, of course, with Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. I want to go back to how you picked up this infection, to trace back to a wedding at Stanwell Tops, which is a little village on the coast south of Sydney near Royal National Park. It seems that a dozen or more people seem to have been infected from just the one wedding, which underscores how infectious this virus can be.
Well, Chris, this couple are actually great friends of mine, and the groom, Scott Magg, actually established a charity called Beard Season to raise awareness about people having skin checks if they have melanomas, because one of our mates, Wes Bonnie, died from melanoma. So Scott is a very special fellow, and I really do feel sorry for him and Emma, the bride, because obviously there's been a lot of coverage about the wedding. I mean, it's no reflection on them.
Oh, of course not.
As you can imagine, it's just I guess it's not really the sort of publicity you want to have about your wedding.
No, of course not. But the key point here, especially as we're going into sort of isolation around the country and we're cancelling sporting events and gatherings of more than 100 people, it is a very real-life example of how gatherings of people can spread the disease, so we can learn lessons from it. For instance, do we know from investigating this, talking to everyone, do we know exactly where the initial infection came from, and can we work out then whether it was spread through handshakes or what can you tell us?
Well, it's a good question, Chris. I think actually the real number of infections from that wedding is actually closer to 30, which is a bit of an epicentre in New South Wales. Look, I mean, I'd really only be speculating. My understanding was that there was some people from overseas that had recently arrived at that wedding, and it sounds like it's spread through just that wedding environment. I mean, I was in bed by 10 o'clock, so I'm not sure, really it was a pretty sort of tame affair, I have to say. So I'm not really sure there was much more than people shaking hands and having a drink and having something to eat. that led to this huge explosion.
All right. Now, of course, Parliament will be sitting next week. You'll be one of a third of politicians from around the country who won't be there. That sounds like a very sensible arrangement to keep the numbers down as low as possible.
That's right. So I've just got to try and find other ways that I can be useful. I've already put together a few ideas on books I might be able to write, or even other work I might be able to do on committees. So I'm determined not to remain idle. As you know, I like to do a lot of things. I can't go to Canberra, but I try and find ways to support the team from Sydney. And
you can work out a new superannuation policy while you're there, no doubt. Andrew, look, I really appreciate you joining us and good luck with the rest of your recovery, and keep in touch.